Hello and welcome to an all-new Deep Cuts Live. I'm your host, Antoine Reid, and today we have with us Mike Palmer from Powstanie Cigars. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I've seen you at the trade show, as I've
Yes,
done most people who are on the show, but we've not had a chance to have a long extended conversation because during the trade show you're luckily very busy, and
very,
I'm
very
running
busy.
around like crazy as typical.
Right.
But
The most
um,
awkward place for you and I to have to sneak away and get a conversation.
right.
Right.
So this is your first time on the show, so welcome, and I'm looking
Thank you.
forward to getting to know more about you and also your brand because I did get a sample of the San Andreas that you released at the trade show, and you get so many, right? You get so many samples at the trade show that it's
Sure.
hard to obviously smoke through them all in a timely manner, but
Right.
it was the first one of the first cigars I was just like,
Of
random,
course. Yes.
like random cigar when I got back from New Orleans, and I was like, let me try it, and I really liked it because so many times people say, this cigar has this flavor, or the transitions are great,
Right.
and a lot of times I feel like it's a little bit of BS because it's like you go to smoke that cigar, and sometimes you're just like,
It
I didn't
don't.
get it.
I don't get those flavor things very
Right,
often. Some guys are so specific. It's like, well, it tastes like the spice my grandmother used when she made pumpkin pie. I'm like, I
right.
first, how do I know what that is if I even did taste it? And two, there's no way you're getting that. But
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah. But
but
I'm
more
sure
power to him. So
we'll get more into that and kind of cigar pet peeves as we get through our hour
oh,
together.
good. Those I have. I have pet peeves.
I kind of had a feeling that you had a few, so
Just a
I'm
few.
looking forward to touching on those subjects. But before we get into the main conversation, I always like to kind of pick a random icebreaker question for you to answer. And for you, your icebreaker question is: if your younger self met you today, what would they
Yes.
be most surprised by?
The younger self met me today. Well, probably first cigar. Well, how young we talking?
I
Hey,
would say,
okay. I
I would
started
say,
smoking. Go ahead.
I would say like teenage years, like
Okay. I was
13.
gonna
Like,
say, oh, 13. Oh, probably that I make a living selling cigars.
I know,
Because at 13, I obviously wasn't smoking yet, but it would have just seemed like such a far off thing that not just I did it, but that anybody makes a living off of cigars. I mean, 13, so that would have been back in the mid to early 80s. So yeah, it would have been ridiculous. You're doing what? No, you're not doing that. Right.
yeah. I think my younger self would felt like that too, because I'm a product of the '80s as well, 80s, '90s. So we went through the whole.
You don't look old enough for that.
So we went through the Reagan just say no
Right.
years,
Right.
and dare,
Yep.
and
This is
all
your
that
brain
stuff.
on drugs.
Yep,
The
yep.
egg frying in the pan. I
Uh,
never got that. I never understood what that was.
and there was one commercial. It feels like just yesterday, but it was a commercial of like this person was on drugs and they would be sitting on the couch completely deflated, and like their family members would be like, "What's wrong with you?" And they'd be like, they couldn't talk or anything. They would just be like a deflated balloon. So I think my younger self would be like, "You're gonna do what?" Like
Right.
Nancy
That's
Reagan
that's
would
not
not
a
approve.
thing. Right. Nancy would not approve. Reagan's are two of my because I feel Nancy was the president the last term he had. Those are two of my favorite presidents that we've had.
I've just finished reading "Tear Down This Myth," which is all about the Reagan years. So I definitely tell people if you don't remember it, because obviously I was a kid during those years, but
Right.
it's interesting to go back and read that now, and then compare it to everything that's happened from late '80s till today, and be like,
Right.
oh, like there's so much like that's repeated itself, and yet we make it seem like the stuff is completely new. So that's both comforting and annoying to to know
Right.
that
Exactly.
we
Exactly.
we've gone through a lot of these things and politics before in some way. But it just obviously when it happens now, we have such selective memory that it seems even worse.
Sure. And who's not better prepared to be a president than an actor?
I know, yeah.
I mean, he was a decent actor in his day, but that way he could respond to anything, and be anybody, and so whether everything he said was true or not, you couldn't tell.
Right.
Right.
He was perfect for like that period of time, but
Right,
he would have
exactly.
done well in the social media era because
Oh, it would have been great.
the book was talking about how him and his people understood, like you said, the blocking of the photo
Right.
op. Like they
Right.
wanted
Exactly.
to, like, you got to
Knew
have
how to
like
take it.
this big majestic photo op thing behind you. You got to make
Right.
this statement and make it sound, like this. You got to have that, there you go again, catchphrases and stuff like that.
Exactly. He
And
knew
so,
how to play the public.
definitely.
Right.
So obviously we're not a politics
No.
podcast, so but that's always a nice little deviation to go into. But obviously we're here today to talk about cigars, and we're here to talk about you. So you talked about how your younger
Oh.
self would be surprised about how you got into cigars. So how did you get into the whole premium cigar world?
Well, I started smoking cigars when I was 18 years old. I was working at Kmart at the time, actually, and I was with another guy. We used to set up the patio at Kmart, and I was in Michigan, so which is a seasonal thing there. But in the wintertime, it was storage for toys and Christmas decorations and stuff. So we were outside like all the time, and nobody ever came to check on us because we did our job and everything always looked nice, everything was clean. So at lunch one day, he bought a pack of backwoods, those weird looking, oddly wrapped cigars that came in the tinfoil bag. And I sort of got hooked on them with him. And that would be lunch, a couple of backwoods. And unfortunately at the time, maybe a little beer because nobody would come out and check on us at all. So then backwoods grew into, better cigars and better cigars. And then when I met my current wife, she bought me my very first humidor and really got me into it. And she lived in Missouri. I lived in Florida, so there was a lot of back and forth travel and stuff. So the way I met people in Missouri was hanging out at a cigar lounge or smoking cigars with the neighbors or something like that. And then, that sort of built. And then when she eventually moved down here to Florida, she finally got a job. She was a teacher. She got a job down here. I worked from home. Back then, I set up factories in China for American and Canadian companies. So during the day, I didn't really talk to anybody. Most of my job was emailing people in China in the morning. All their emails come in. I work the emails, do the spreadsheets, and then, send them to the customers in America. And then they do what they do to it and send it back. So there was not a lot of interaction with people. So when she would get home in the afternoon from school, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was bored out of my mind because I had not spoken to anybody all day long. So I get, as she says, I got a little, not aggressive, but a little excited. And it would be like, hey, you know what I did today? Look, I bought new socks. Look, I taught the dog a trick. And she said, you have to find a hobby. You got to find something to do. So I started getting into cigars more. I started a Facebook group as a way to meet people. And that sort of took off and grew. And then I met the guys at Cigar Hustler, Mike and Greg. I met Mikey just through a random thing. He was giving me a handful of stickers for a giveaway or something for my cigar club. That's how I met him the first time. And then she changed districts, and we moved from Seminole into Volusia County, which is across the bridge, which is where Cigar Hustler, the shop, is. And it turned out it was 3 miles from my house. So I started hanging out here 1 day a week, 2 days a week, every day of the week. And eventually they gave me a key because I would be outside waiting when I got here because my day started so much earlier than theirs did. So it just sort of took off from there. And then now we go 11 years later, and we've sort of, we have a great relationship, me and the two guys. I've never had two closer friends. And they've trusted me to be their national salesman for their brand. It's gotten to the point where Mikey can't do it by himself anymore. It's just gotten too big. So that's and now I've met you, and now I'm on the D Cuts Live podcast. In a long story short type of way.
So you started off with backwoods, but do you remember what your first kind of premium cigar was?
I know it had a red band. That's all I remember. And I went to somebody's company party at Christmas, and I had one in my pocket, and I'm like, and I was 18 or 19 years old, not sure what the age was where I was supposed to be smoking these or not, and I sort of pulled it out, and I wish I could remember what it was. I just remember the band had red with gold writing on it, so who knows what it was. And I sort of smoked it at the Christmas party, and some people came up to me and asked me what it was, and sort of started conversations with people. I remember thinking, well, this is pretty cool. I'm like the guy now here, this. Somehow this has turned into something else. So that's where and now we're here. So
I always like to get that story because so many people start off with like they either start off with a cigar that they don't like and they
right.
take a couple years to not smoke and then they find something that they do like, or they just make that transition from something flavor, a flavored cigar type thing to finally something that's a little bit more premium.
Yeah. Now I was 19 to 20 years old, so I'm sure it was very cheap and probably very bad. whatever it was. But at the time, I thought, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world.
And the people around you probably were like, they just thought it was a cigar. So
yeah, they just thought it was a cigar. They've got some 19, 20-year-old guy standing over the corner, or sitting by his table smoking a cigar, and they wouldn't know what it was.
So what was your first? So you started a cigar club. Was that?
Yes, on Facebook, called the Florida Cigar Club. I started out as part of a bigger club. It was called the something Cigar Club. I don't remember. But it didn't work out for me because it was nationwide. It had like 5,000 members or something. And it was nationwide. So I still wasn't meeting people. So I messaged the guy and I go, look, here's what I'm looking to do. Can I do like an offshoot, a smaller branch of your club and call it the Florida Cigar Club? And he goes, yeah, sure. I don't care. So I did that, and it started growing. And it got to the point, and then I started organizing what we call HERFs now. But back then, I don't think it was called a HERF. But I started organizing little get-togethers, for people to meet. I had them to my house at first, and then we started going to different shops and stuff. And then the other people in the group were sort of getting jealous that they didn't have that in their area, and they were complaining. So the guy kicked me out. I was causing problems for him. So one day I went to log in on Facebook, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm out. I'm not in this anymore. So then I started it myself. And we started with 5 guys. Only one of them is still in the club. They've all moved on or stopped smoking or something. And now we're close to 2,000 or 3,000 members. We have anywhere between 5 and 8 HERFs around the state of Florida every week. I've got a lovely young lady now who organizes all that for me. And every Sunday night, she gathers information. She'll post, each of the groups have a name, and these guys are going here, these guys are going here, these guys are meeting at this shop, and she lists it all out, and people show up, and it gives people a chance to get out and talk, and maybe that's their one day a week they get away from their normal lives or something. But and now the shops in Florida know us because we're an organized group, and we don't allow. It's PG-13 language. There's no, here's my wife with a cigar in her chest thing. There's no pictures like that allowed anywhere. Or here's a little hoochie that served me my beer as I'm smoking my cigar. I just had to kick a guy out the other day for that. We've got a lot of clergymen in the club. My wife's in the club. Other guys' wives are in the club. So we just don't allow that kind of stuff, And I've only had to kick out. So we just did 11 years in June. It was like June 17th. It's been 11 years. I've probably only kicked out people for rule violations, maybe 7 or 8. So, I mean, it works out well. And also, you in the old days, I shouldn't leak this out, but in the old days, you had to participate to stay in. So you had to post or comment on something once every 2 weeks. Now, Facebook back then with a smaller group, it was easy to check. They would sort of list it. But now with, 2,000 members, it's kind of hard to keep track, of everybody more. So, every once in a while you delete a dozen or so people that you can figure out they haven't done anything, and it scares everybody, and they, and then they start making posts again. Terrence Riley's in the group from Argonosa, and he posts every 2 weeks and makes a point to tell me he posted every 2 weeks so I don't kick him out. So I'll reciprocate, and I will post in his group when he posted mine for the same reason.
Well, that's cool. It sounds like, you understood early on what a lot of different companies in the cigar industry really didn't, which was, the power of these social media channels and platforms to create community.
Right. It is, and it's, cigars you can't advertise, as we all know. So as long as you're careful with the wording, it's also a way to advertise. I've only had one Facebook violation because I put that a cigar was now available, and they flagged me for that. So now you don't say now available, We have this, you can do that, but you can't say now available. It's so weird. And we don't allow any sales of any kind inside the club. There's no trades. There's no sales. There's no, you can't sell any accessories, nothing, because, maybe that 1 out of 100 times somebody's going to rip somebody off, and then it falls back on me. I feel responsible because it happened inside my group. So the easiest way not to make me have to pay for it, because I have done that before, I just outlawed it. None at all. I'm sorry you've got 2 humidors, you want to sell one. There's other groups you can do it. You can't do it here.
And I like, too, that you made sure that the group stayed, like, friendly towards everyone who wanted to be in it. Like,
right.
Because you said, like, you moderated the, like, photos. And we all have seen those photos on social media.
Sure.
We still do today.
Yeah,
for
the
some
guy's
reason.
wife, where,
right.
she's pressing her chest together and the cigar's balanced on her. Like, no, if you want to do that, there's plenty of groups for that. We don't do that here.
Yeah.
I don't want to explain that to my wife.
It's always strange when I see pictures like that still, because I remember getting into the industry in 2010, and like that was like the norm. Unfortunately, it was like women were like props in the industry, and they were, you would see these ads from even the big companies, and it would always be like the busty woman, made it look alluring, and she was like the arm candy. And luckily now that's you don't see those kind of ads or
not as much, no, right.
as much, but you still see a few, like you said, pictures where it's just like some random guy who smokes cigars is like, here's my wife, or
here's my wife. I rested my cigar between her butt cheeks. Well,
right, exactly.
No, I don't need to say it. Now, how did you not burn her behind too? So. If I used to like to look at those magazine photos of the girls, because if you looked, the cigar never changed. So like I say, it's this long. It's the same cigar in like 17 different photos. It wasn't even lit. She's not even smoking it, obviously.
Well, yeah.
And like I said, the picture is so big and the cigar is so small. It's not a cigar edit, or it's not a cigar picture anymore.
I know. You have to like take out the magnifying glass to say like, what cigar is that maybe? And then
it's like the old Seek and Find, where's the cigar now?
So you started creating these Facebook groups, which, translated to like real groups and people, communities and stuff like that. What did you start like realizing, like maybe this was like a little bit more than just like a hobby? Because obviously, I mean, you got into the industry even deeper than just, organizing it, but these groups. But when did you start realizing like, there might be something more to this cigar stuff?
The more I got to know Mike and Greg, the more they were willing to let me do things, whatever I wanted to do. There's certain rules, obviously, but, and then that grew into being their, I forget what we even called it, something like director of social media or something, where because at a shop, and I don't know if all shops do this, but at our shop, they like for the employees to post. It's actually a rule. If you're working a shift, they want you to post a photo. But if you don't have somebody who's let's just say in charge of it, it gets confusing because, say there's 5 guys working in any given week. All 5 guys want to promote the event that's going to happen, let's say, the next week. Well, then that's 5 different photos about the event. You might have conflicting information. Somebody might get a date wrong, and it just becomes confusing. So you need one guy that is in charge of, let's say, the business part of it. So I started doing the post for the events. If something new came in, we would sort of try to keep track on who posted it so it didn't get posted again. So it just makes a cleaner appearance and looks more professional on social media than, 17 pictures of an Espinosa, cigar because Espinosa's coming next week. So I think that's what it was. And now it's gotten, I'm surprised they don't ask me more often what I'm doing. I mean, I have complete access upstairs to any room. There's some rooms that have a thumbprint reader where you can get into it. I have access to everything, and I don't know why. I have keys to everything. If something's missing, they'll call me at home and go, look, we can't find so-and-so, or we can't find the paperwork for this. And I'll tell them where it is because, you and I are apparently around the same age group. it's not that I know more than anybody else, but I take the time to figure out where something is. I talked about this on a couple other shows, but when I first started hanging out upstairs and I had complete access, I would, if I'm working, I would go look around. If it's slow up front or something, I'll open a cabinet. I'll look in a drawer. It's because the guy that knows where stuff is the valuable employee. He's the one everybody asks the questions to.
Especially when people leave. And
Right,
then they
yeah.
want to know, like, well, I wonder what happened to that thing, or where's
Well,
this
we've
thing
had that
at?
happen where, like, somebody would set up the beer menus thing that shows on the TV behind the bar, which shows all the beer and wine that we carry. They quit. We don't have the password anymore. And then depending on how they left, if they want to give it to you or not. So, I became the password guy. So it's just the way it works, and it just works well. But like one year, me and one of the other guys, we gave Mikey, Greg, and a couple other guys, we gave them bobbleheads for Christmas, that look like them. Well, he goes, we have to have 3 pictures of everybody's face: a front, a right side, and a left side picture. I go, okay. So I just went around and told people, okay, look at me, took a picture. Turn your head right, took a picture. Turn your head left, took a picture. Nobody ever asked what I was doing. And then we gave them the bottles. They're like, oh, that's why you took the picture. I'm like, why do people ask me? And they go, it's always something you're doing for the good of the business or something, so we just let you go.
Well, I
Yeah,
guess that's a good position to be in, though, because I guess if they did, like, what are you doing, and
right.
everything was questioned, and it will be, after a while, you'll be like, don't you
It would
know
take
I'm
me
helping?
so much. Yeah, it would take me so much longer to do things that way.
Right.
Like, just ignore me. I'm just running around.
So obviously, like, right before we went live, I was asking you how to pronounce the brand name,
Uh-huh.
and you were saying, like, well, it's not Spanish like most of them. So how did you come across this brand name?
Well, Mikey and Greg are, their last name is Stepankevich. And I can almost spell it I always miss one letter somewhere in it. But it's about 15 letters, no vowels. It's ridiculous. So they're first generation Polish immigrants. Their dad came over from Poland through England. And Powstanie means uprising. It's something that was yelled by the Polish rebels during World War II. So they built the brand as a way to have something that nobody else could mess with. It was designed originally to be an in-house brand, because there's a local cigar guy here in our area that was trying to suppress them from getting certain cigars by strong-arming the brands. I have more locations than they do. If you sell them, I'm not going to buy it type thing. So they were lucky enough to fall in with the guys at Romacraft. So our stuff is made at the Nicosueña factory. It's been 4 out of 5 years the #1 factory according to Half Wheel. They have an excellent reputation. We never have any production problems or construction issues. So the cigars are good. When the word got out who was making our cigars and that they were doing it, people started to try them. It picked up. Other stores wanted to carry it. They sort of fell into the wholesale business that way. And now, we're in about 200 shops across the country. Give or take 1 or 2 people drop off, new ones add in all the time. So that's how it took off. So, and then the name of the distribution company is Poshik, Pospiech, which means hustle. So the name of the store was called Cigar Hustler. So the name of the distribution company is called Hustle. So, and then the limited that we come out with every 2 years, the War Bear, is an actual brown bear from World War II that the Polish army sort of adopted. And then they, when they went to move from one location to the other, they're like, well, you can't take the bear. The bear's not going with. So they inducted the bear into the army and made him a corporal. He actually outranked some of the privates that were feeding him and stuff. And he, over his own fruition, started learning how to carry boxes of bombs and bullets. And he would carry those up to the line where he could carry 3 or 4 boxes. A normal man could carry maybe 1 or maybe 2. So the whole brand is built around this tremendous Polish history of World War II and how they fought against somebody who was bigger and better than they were.
I think that's cool because, I mean, obviously in this industry, you do have lots of the how do you name a brand? You can go we're going to name it the family's last name or
Right.
Spanish or something like that. So making it something very personal that is not Spanish related makes it stand out, obviously.
Right, certainly. And we started with the red and white and black bands, which were the colors of the Polish flag. We're sort of getting away from that now to make it more modern looking with the red and black of the San Andreas or the gold and black of the Connecticut. So,
So you mentioned like people started kind of catching on to your brand once they knew what factory it was made at. So
hmm
I always like wonder why cigar companies don't always go that route. Like I know that there's some cigar companies that have their own factory, so they don't need to promote like this came from our factory. They can kind
right,
of do it in passing, but for others that are trying to kind of catch on in this industry, which I would think in with so many different choices available in the market right now, and like you said, limited advertising opportunities, it's hard to get your brand and name out there. But
right.
um, probably I would think it would be pretty smart to use to just look for a good factory to work with, not only for like
Exactly.
the
Right.
name, but to say like they know what they're doing,
Right.
and they if you like stuff, if you like these cigars, then you probably like our cigars because they're made at the same factory.
Exactly. Right.
But you
Same.
don't, but you don't see that marketing a lot.
No, no, you don't, and it is very strange. You're right, and unless I don't know, maybe some factories don't have the same reputation as other factories, and maybe you don't want them to know where you made your cigar. I don't know. I don't know why you would do business with a factory where you had to hide the name anyway. That makes no sense at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I feel
it
the
can't,
same way about like when it's like a blend, and I mean, just reading about a blend doesn't give you obviously like the impression of what that cigar is going to smoke like. But at the same time, when you get a press release and everything's like undisclosed, 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 then for me,
that's
I just get a little. I'm like, are
that's
you?
the new thing now. Everybody's undisclosed, and I don't know. Even with, I mean, we've done that several times, and we've done it as jokes by saying like it was made by on Doctor Doom's home planet. There was one cigar we said the tobacco came from there. My cigar, the BDP, we claim that the tobacco came from the island of Nauru, which is the smallest island in the Micronesian islands. I mean, it's just fun for us to do that. But you're right. But even like we'll say that the binder is Indonesian and the filler is Nicaraguan. I mean, that's specific enough for most people. They don't need to know that it's Criollo 98 or Omontempe or whatever the specific is. Because honestly, I'm in the industry, as you keep saying. I couldn't pick one of those out if I had to.
I can't either.
No, I couldn't do that. I'm not a blender by any means. I'm a salesman. I sell what somebody else who's smarter than me knows how to put together to taste good. So,
I feel like though it's the story behind the cigar and the people behind it that make the cigar more interesting. Because like you said, like just reading what the blend is, I usually shrug at it because I don't know I don't get the sense of what that cigar is just by reading about it. But
right.
if it's a person, and they tell the story behind it, like um, I mean, I can think of a dozen examples, but I don't want to take away from the focus on your brand today. But
Oh, if you're
there's
gonna
people.
slam somebody else, go ahead.
I mean, no, there's people who say like this was inspired by like a relationship I had with my father or my
Oh,
grandfather,
right. Yeah, yeah,
that kind of cigar stuff, and
yeah.
it's like you could tell when it's a real story because they really have like a lot of passion behind it. Other
Right.
than the opposite end of the spectrum is we just our company just released 5 other cigars this year. This is the sixth cigar. It has this wrapper binder filler. The MSRP is this. It was made in this country. Insert a quote. Buy
Right. Insert a quote.
it.
Right. Standard
Just
press
like
release.
you're just like I mean, you just kind of just shrug at that and go, okay, I guess I mean I don't really respond to that. So I do think
Right.
people respond a little bit more to stories and branding and colors, things that kind of look trivial to some people than they do, maybe a robust press release that kind of skirts around and tells you that this tobacco was grown 5 years ago and aged.
People love a good story, Antoine. They
They
love
do.
a good story. There's one that's out now that is supposedly the tobacco takes 3 years to grow. It's grown in the jungle, in a rainforest. They have to bring it out in canoes. But it's still a $10 cigar. Like, seriously? All that trouble and you're only charging $10 for that cigar?
So, like at the trade show, I remember passing by your booth several times, and you were
This
slammed. Like each,
this past year?
yes, this past
Okay,
year.
well, first,
Sorry.
thank you for being able to find it because we were hidden. You could not find us behind, I forget, Jake Wyatt or something. We're behind some giants on the plant. Well, I don't know. You know how that worked out because you work for the company. But yeah, but you're right. Yeah, we were slammed this year. We were booked full day 1 and day 2, and day 3 we were half booked, and I was so happy because I got to eat lunch on the 3rd day. So. But it worked out really well for us. We're currently one of the media darlings in the cigar industry, and you ride this wave for as long as it lasts. So,
One of the releases that you had at the trade show was, I think, SBC 2024. Was that?
yep, SBC 2024. This lovely little fella right here.
So tell us about that cigar.
This cigar also comes out every 2 years. Our limited to do. We try to alternate it to where this comes out 1 year and then the bear comes out the other. But during COVID, production problems, all that stuff, so now they end up coming out in the same year. But this is a Mexican Habano Ecuadorian Connecticut barber pole. This year, we never changed the Vitola, but we always changed the blend. So this year, Alex, who works at Nicasueño, came up with the blend for us. It's a delicious cigar. It's got some unusual flavor because of the Mexican Habano. From what I've been told, I don't know how close I can get to the camera. There we go. The Mexican Habano is the darker part. We're the only ones that have ever used it as a wrapper because it's not very pretty, but it tastes really good. And then we changed the colors. This year we came up with the Miami Vice, so it's this pink and blue band, and then the boxes are this. We always wrap the boxes, which is sort of a trade secret why we have to do that. So, but this year they're purple, or not purple, they're blue. They're this metallic blue color. Sorry, purple was last year. We did 500 boxes. They come 20 in a box, $17 a stick. We have a little less than 100 left. If somebody still wants to get them, they can call me. But we can't advertise, so, it's the way it works. Oh, I thought you froze up. I didn't know what happened.
No, I was just waiting. I was like letting you get the spill out.
That's the story. It's a Corona size cigar, so and it's always the same size. So it's a great little stick. We have, like I said, we just have some left, not many at all.
And the other big release that you had was the San Andreas.
The San Andreas came out about 2 months before that, the Mexican San Andreas. We are technically replacing our broadleaf cigar with this one because broadleaf, as you know, is becoming harder and harder to get. So production for broadleaf has sort of been suspended. So Mikey went last year over to the factory and made this Mexican San Andreas with the red and the black. It turned out really well also. But this is a regular core line item. And then at the end of the year, our War Bear for 2025 is coming out. We're calling it the War Bear of Mass Destruction. It's a 5 1/8 by 60 Grand Perfecto. It's going to be a box of 10, and there's going to be an interesting packaging design on it. That's why it's not coming out till around Christmas, but that'll be something to look forward to. This one's a Mexican San Andreas Habano barber pole, and this is it's always been an amazing cigar. With the bigger size, it sort of spreads the flavor out a little bit, so it's a little bit lighter than we normally like for the War. War Bear is usually one of our strongest cigars, but the flavor luckily stayed with the size. So I'm trying to figure out where that goes. There we go. So this guy will be out around Christmas. The San Andreas Corona Gorda we sort of held back. Mm-hmm. We were talking the other day, that might come out in the third quarter. We just sort of held that size back. When Mikey made the Connecticut a couple of years ago, he held back the Corona Gorda because he called it the Justice, named it after his second son, because the blend was actually done years ago for the birth of his son. And then he turned it into a core line item. So we sort of hold back the Corona Gorda as a special release, another little trick just to keep your name out and stay active with the community and the cigar industry.
So as someone who has to basically get the word out and sell these cigars to retailers, I'm always curious to hear what the retailers are saying about cigars today. Like I know that there's some who, they say they have limited space in their humidor. They don't have, space to bring in everything. So they want to hold off or they're looking for certain things. So what are some of the pain points that you kind of hear from them right now?
Everybody says they're out of room in the humidor. That's what everybody says. You make space for what you think you can move. And since we're doing well right now with the consumer, don't get a lot. It's usually smaller buys is what I'm finding, not as big as it was. Because I started doing this the end of last year, and as it's getting more into 2025, I think they're just buying maybe a little bit less, not a whole lot less, but a little bit less, being a little more cautious. Trying to spread their buying dollars out further. I like that we had the show earlier in the year. That seemed to help than having it in the summertime. Plus the heat's always crazy in Vegas anyway. But I don't know. It's good. It's going okay. Things are going well. We're doing okay. They seem to be happy with me here at the office, so that's all I'm going with. So as long as I keep everybody happy and keep my job, everybody's happy.
Well, it seems like your brand would be like a good addition to a humidor for someone, looking for that, like I said, that actual flavor and the transitions and stuff like that. And it probably comes from the factory that you work with, because like I said, not everyone, there's a lot of people who says like, oh, it has so much like complex flavor. And I mean, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but it just tastes like a cigar to me, and like, tobacco.
Right, just like
what
tobacco.
It should.
Right, that's what it's supposed to be. That's what that's what we're all sitting around doing. We're just smoking cigars. If I wanted to smoke a bowl of cereal, I would eat a bowl of cereal.
Exactly. Now, one of the things that I know about you is that you're big into podcasting.
Yes.
You and Mike have your own podcast, and you post clips all the time, which is pretty entertaining. Tell us a little bit about that, because you all will talk. It seems like you talk about a wide range of topics.
We have changed the show this year to add what we call trending topics. So Mikey's goal is to make cigars more accessible and more open to the general public than just what they say, there's 1% of the population of America smokes cigars. He would like that to be higher. So we add the first part of our show. We've been back up here a little bit. We've been doing the show about 7 years. Mm-hmm. And we don't take any advertisers. So when we say something about a cigar, that's the truth about the cigar as we see it. It's our opinion. Nobody can tell us any different. Nobody can tell us we have to say the cigar is good. Nobody can tell us that that this person's doing a good job. Whatever we say is what we believe. So I forgot what we were talking about.
Just the kind of questions that.
Oh, the kind of questions. Gotcha. I'm sorry, I lost it again. What are we talking about? Give me one more time. Say it one more time.
Oh, we're talking about like your podcast and how you and Mike talk about a wide range of topics.
Oh, right.
You were saying
gotcha. Gotcha.
That was intentional to get people hooked into, the cigar category a little bit more than if you're just sitting there talking about cigar nerdy stuff like, ooh, like Condega.
Right. Ooh, Condega. Do you have Condega? I have Condega. Right. Well, the format of the show used to be the first 15 to 20 minutes we'd talk about what we did for the week. And Mikey's really involved with his kids, so there was a lot of, sports stuff with his kids. And I'm old and married. My kids have all moved out. I cut the grass on the weekends. I don't have an exciting life. So, it got to be the point where they're like, so did you cut the grass again? I'm like, sure did. I shaved 45 minutes off of it this week. It was great. So that wasn't working anymore. Other shows do sports at the beginning. Other shows talk about food and stuff. So we decided to do Google trending stories. What is everybody talking about that we can break up into? Mikey does all those clips every week. It takes him a good 2 or 3 days to do those clips. He's done an amazing job at it. And when he started doing it, I went, look, I'm done with this part of the show. You're doing a great job. Because I would try to do one too, and you're like, well, you should do this or you should do that. I'm like, you know what? This is your baby now. You do this. I do everything else. You do this. That's fine. So the trendy topics brings it into another area. If we do a story about Donald Trump, because and not for or against him. We make sure we walk that line. You don't want to make anybody mad. But maybe he a couple weeks ago his son started a cell phone service or something. So we did a story about that. So so then you get to hashtag Donald Trump, hashtag Trump Mobile, hashtag whatever. And it brings in more people. People are looking for that type of information. So, and as Mikey says, he goes, I don't look at the news anymore. I just wait till we do the show. He goes, if we didn't talk about the show, he goes, I don't know what's going on. So we're hoping other people like that too, come to us for the information and stuff.
It's kind of like the hot topics part of the View. Like when you get just like you're not going to get a 10 or 15-minute discussion on something. It's just like quick flashes of like,
right.
This is like a big topic that came up recently, and we're going to discuss it. We're going to save our points of views and move on to something else.
Right. I'll do a 2 or 3 minute read about the story. Some information I've stolen from somewhere else, obviously, because I don't have that kind of time or that kind of talent. And then Mikey will ask us some questions. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Or I'll ask him some questions. And we have a little bit of a back and forth. Then we move on to the next story. And each segment can usually about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's 3 or 4 trending stories, 3 or 4 cigar stories, and then we've started playing a game at the end called What's the Score, which seems to be really popular. Everybody really likes that. And then, we always, for 6.5 years, we were 1 hour. The show's just an hour. We don't do those 3 or 4 hour shows where people are, I don't know how you can watch those shows in the first place, but still. If it works for people, it works for people. But now we're at an hour and a half because we've added the little game at the end, and we've added a couple extra stories. And 90 minutes seems to be our sweet spot at the moment.
That's good.
So we've been doing it 7 years, like I said. We don't make any money on it. We are lucky enough now between our Patreon and now we're selling T-shirts that we don't have any out-of-pocket expenses anymore.
That's always good.
Right. Yeah, so we're happy to break even. We're not going to get rich at this. We've already decided that 5 years ago, but, at least it pays for itself now. And
so
go ahead.
I was going to ask you, what's a topic that you two kind of talked about recently that kind of stands out in your mind?
We'll see. This week's show, we had, somebody hacked Elmo's Twitter account. I know it's called X now, but I feel funny calling it X. Somebody hacked Elmo's Twitter account and started putting up anti-Semitic comments as they were Elmo. They started bashing Trump as they were Elmo. So in Elmo's vernacular and his third-person way of speaking. And then they started talking about the Epstein files and stuff. So that was funny. So we try to stay away from, somebody died or some horrific fire ruined somebody's life or something, because we do joke about it. And it's funny that Elmo is being bad, but it's not funny that, somebody lost their house.
Right.
So you can't do that because we're an entertainment show. That's what it is. We're here to entertain. Hopefully somebody gets a laugh or two. Maybe they learn something, so. And it does promote the brand. I mean, we're not stupid. It promotes the shop upstairs. We always say what events the brand has going on. Like I was plugging this podcast last week and this week that I was going to be on this tonight. Mikey's got an event up in Minnesota next week that he's going to do. And then the shop has an event at the end of the month, which it does every month. But we plug that for the 3 or 4 shows coming up to that. So, and it's called the Cigar Hustler Podcast. So, it's connected to everything.
And I've seen, especially like Mikey doing, and you recently doing like other people's podcasts and stuff like that. So how are your relationships with the other media in the cigar category at least going? Like, it seems like it's going well.
He gets asked to do shows where I have to ask to be on somebody's shows, and which is fine. I mean, he runs a cigar shop. He's got a wholesale business. He owns a brand. There's not many of those guys in our industry that can talk about all aspects of the industry. So he's a good guest to have on, and he tells the truth. I mean, it's not swayed by anything. So it comes off as sort of a fresh new thing where, he's not just making up information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think half the problem with me is I run my mouth. I'm honest about it. If you have me on your show, and thank you for having me on the show, I'm trying to behave. You really don't know what I'm going to say, and I think some people might be a little afraid of that. but the shows that have me on, they seem to enjoy it. They like it. I not as, I don't know. I try to behave a little more than I used to because now I'm also, the national sales manager for the brand. So I've got something else behind me that I have to protect. When we just did the podcast, I wasn't really an employee
Right.
when we first started doing it. So, I could really say more what I wanted. What's, as long as I didn't embarrass Mikey or embarrass the shop upstairs, and he still pretty much lets me say what I want. They very rarely will go, you need to cut that out of the show. You probably maybe shouldn't have said that. My brain works a lot faster than my mouth does, or is it my mouth works faster than my brain? I don't know. Sometimes things come out and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. But I'm getting better at it. So, that's what it is. You're trying to, at this age still, I'm trying to teach an old dog new tricks. So.
And do you all bring? I know, one time you brought some Lido Jr. on your show to do an interview. I think with him. Do you do that a lot, or is it just you and Mikey most of the time?
Majority of the time, it's me and Mikey. We have a third guy who is our engineer, but he's off camera. You can hear him, but you can't see him. He runs the board for us and does all the recordings. When somebody's on Lido Jr., we've had Steve Saka on. We just did Skip Martin, but he's been on before. Those are more interviews of opportunity when somebody happens to be coming by the shop, or they'll call and ask if they can come on the show, and then we'll set up. I'm actually doing our show today from our private lounge, which is now where we shoot the podcast from. So we had a studio next door, but we gave it up because this is better. We're always growing. We're always changing things. We're always upgrading equipment. We're learning how to do new things all the time. So the interviews, I think Mikey does really well. And sometimes, like with Skip, we did a Romacraft event here at the shop, and it was a ticketed event down here in the lounge, and we do a catered dinner with a cigar celebrity. And then as part of the dinner, they get to watch a taping of the podcast, which is the live interview. We set it up over here in front of the lockers, and I sit off to the side. I run the equipment for those, just so I'm still part of the show, even though we can't. It's too hard to add a third person into that type of thing. So it works out well. We've got the guy. I'm terrible with names. We've got a guy from Merrifield tomorrow. We've got the guy from Cigar TV coming on here in a couple of weeks. So. It's like I said, it's interviews of opportunity. Somebody will be coming, or somebody will ask to be on. Like Lido Jr. asked if he could be on, which was great. That was a great interview. Mikey did a great job with him.
He did. It was really good. And yeah. Lido's one of the people that I really do enjoy speaking to, from the industry as part of that kind of next generation kind of coming up. And
he was very nice. I had never met him before on that level. And he was very nice. He was very honest. I don't think he held anything back. Like I said, it was a great interview.
If you had a chance to have one of these people from the industry kind of come and sit down and you could ask them anything, who'd be your dream kind of
We talk about that a lot, but we've had over the last 7 years, we've had a lot of people on. There's really not anybody. We haven't had Pete Johnson on, but I hear he doesn't do many interviews. I think I'd like to have Pete on. We've had Matt Booth on several times. He's a riot. We've had him. Jack's coming for an event at the end of the month. We talked about having him on, but Jack's been on more than anybody else. But Jack's always a good interview. One time we had Jack and Hector on at the same time. That was hilarious. Jack's actually been on so many times. The last episode we had him on, we were in the other room. I went and got a super extra large sport coat from Goodwill. And we gave it to him like, okay, you've now done 5 shows. Here's your honorary, I forget what color it was, your honorary gold plaid sport coat that you need. No, every time you come on now, we'll have this over here, and you can put it on for the interview, Jack, and it'll be a good thing.
So we're halfway through 2025. What are the big plans for your brand for the rest of this year, or are you already kind of working on 2026?
They've already started working on 2026, and this is, I can say this because Mikey said it on somebody else's show, but our catastrophic failure that came out this year, end of last year, first part of this year, is it did so well. We're bringing it back as a core line item. It's going to be a same Vitola, same 5 Vitolas we make of everything else. It's going to come out first or second quarter of next year. I'm really looking forward to that. That should move really well. The War Bear is always a slam dunk when it comes out at Christmas, and we're just peddling through the last of the SBCs at the moment. So things are good for us. We're doing well, and having somebody, from what they tell me, having somebody that is dedicated sales, which Mikey has never been. He can't be 100% everything.
Mm-hmm.
So having somebody who's 100% doing the sales, even if I wasn't any good at it, would still help. And my other jobs, I've never actually been a salesman, so I'm still learning. There's still things that I mess up on. There's still things that maybe I'll miss, and Mikey loves to point those out. He's been very generous with his tutelage. Maybe a little too much sometimes. But, still though, you have to learn, and it's hard because we're such good friends, and it's so. You can't just keep it as a business relationship. There's no way at this point that we could do that. So, I mean, he knows in back of his mind, I know back in my mind, he can't fire me, and I can't quit. I couldn't spin this into a job with somebody else. I'm just not that guy. If Eric Espinoza called me tomorrow and go, we'd like you to come work with Jack and be, right under Jack and take everything. I couldn't go. I wouldn't go. I don't care what the money was. I just couldn't go. I would feel so bad, because Mike and Greg gave me a chance to do this when nobody else would. I tried being a broker a couple of years ago. Biggest mistake of my life. I don't know how brokers do it. It is a thankless job. If you do well, they take it away, and they bring in-house. If you don't do well, it's all your fault. There's no win for a broker, and there are a lot of brokers that are really good at it, but I just wasn't that guy. After 6 or 8 months, I turned in my samples to the couple of brands that I had and said, this isn't for me. This isn't a thing. So, they were willing to give it a try. And I was actually suggested to them by Matt Booth. So thank you, Mr. Booth. He does always tell me I don't sell enough, but other than that, still thank you. Like, I just did this. Not enough. Like, oh, okay, sorry.
So what's the biggest thing that you've learned about sales since this is kind of new to you?
No is okay. I can take a no. It's the not answering the phone calls or not responding to text messages or emails that drive me crazy. You can tell me no. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna die. We're not gonna close the doors here and shut everything down. Just tell me no, with a reasonable reason. If I can't talk you out of it, then, I get people, not all the time, but there's people that say, well, we're not ready right now, or, we like I said, we don't have the space. And I'll go, okay, well, I'll tell you what, though, I'm still going to call you. We'll become really good friends, and there's a handful of guys that, I'll just, if I've had 2 or 3 no's, or 2 or 3 things that didn't answer the phone or something, I know there's still guys that maybe I don't sell to now that'll still answer the phone if I call, or still respond to a text message. So that's always nice.
There was some book I was reading last year, and it was saying that you should kind of flip your psychology. So lots of people try to get yeses and confirmations, but you try to go out and get as many no's as you can, because it means that you've asked the question and you're kind of exercising that, that part of your brain to
right.
deal with rejection, and that means that you've at least asked, put a question out there where they could say like no, and usually
sure.
No means like not right now, or as you were saying, like, the situation isn't good for us now, but we can do it later, or we'll consider it later. So
right.
It's a good kind of mentality to get into, kind of go for no, because it just means that you've actually asked the question and put something out there.
Right. And I mean, if you say no, I don't take it personally. But if you say yes, I assume you love me. So, I take all the credit for the yes. I don't take the blame for the no.
So at this part of the show, as we kind of wrap up this part of the interview, I like to ask, the 2 kind of closing questions. The first of those questions is, do you have a philosophy that you like to live by?
I try to be honest with people, and I'm very loyal. But on the other hand, if you've wronged me, then I'm done. But my wife says I hold a grudge, and she's right. If somebody's mean to her, I'm done with them. That's just the way it is. If you're mean to me, there's other people that aren't, so that's fine. But like I talked earlier about, if I got an offer for somebody else for a bigger sales job, I couldn't leave. Mike and Greg gave me my chance, so this is where I stay. This is it. This company will grow, my position will grow, and it'll work out for everybody.
The last of the questions is, I want you to finish the sentence. Mike Palmer is.
Oh, that's it. Oh, you don't give me anything else to go on.
Yeah, you have to fill it.
I'm a good guy. I had a guy on a podcast ask me, and it was a great question. When you die, and if you believe in heaven or not, not important, but when you get up there, what do you want? What do you want them to tell you in heaven? My answer was, I just want to know I did good. I didn't hurt anybody.
Great.
Thank you.
Now, for those people who are not watching this and who may have been listening, can you tell people what Instagram and what websites and so on that they need to follow in order to keep up with you and your brand?
Okay, since I'm old, I'm going to pull up my phone here real quick. Okay, my personal Instagram is Powstania, Powstanie _Palmer. Then the brand is Powstanie Cigars. Those are the two easiest ways. On Facebook, obviously, it's Mike Palmer, Powstanie Cigars on Facebook. I don't really have an X account. I think I have one that something feeds to or something like that, but that's primarily the two things I use. I use Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, which is under my name, Mike Palmer. And then there's a new one that my stuff goes to, but I'm not even sure what it is. The new Meta one. They always tell me my stuff goes there, but I don't know what it is.
Oh, Blue Sky?
No,
Pages or
it's the new Facebook one. Hold on, it'll say right here in a minute. Threads. Threads is the same thing. It's Mike Palmer there also.
Well, cool. Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the show and answering my 10,000 questions I had for you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I really enjoyed it. This has been fun.
Yeah, and I want you to sit tight because we have a couple more things to film. But for those people who are listening or watching, thank you for listening and watching Deep Cuts Live. And if you want to see any of this episode or any of the previous interviews, you can do so at youtube.com/DeepCupsLive. And make sure to hit the follow button and the like button and leave a comment or leave a review. Those are always good. You can be as harsh or as nice as you want to be. It doesn't really matter. But until next time, thank you so much.